Oh man, I really just, me personally, I want to start with, when Mike Woodson got the job last summer. What were your thoughts, and what were your thoughts going through that process as Scott Dawson needed to find a coach? What were you thinking, and were you happy? I'm sure you were happy, but what were your thoughts about the coaching position?
I think I was probably in the 99 percentile of the fan base and thinking that, if they if they weren't going to get the Celtics coach, I don't know if we're supposed to say his name or not, but if we weren't going to get Brad Stevens, then everything else was just going to kind of be okay. Well, we'll just wait and see. And I was on that board. And I will tell you, I probably got a little more insight than the average fan in that I would text Scott Dawson almost daily. But I mean, they tried everything that they could. I do know that, and it just wasn't meant to be. And I'm a believer in things happen. Sometimes timing just doesn't work out, and it's not the right time for a situation. And I think that was the case here. And so when they hired Mike Woodson, obviously, I think from your and I perspective, we look at it as, okay, great. It's a family member. There's a part of that we have to feel good about. The thing that I just can't believe has happened is from the very first press conference to today, I don't think that I could possibly be more impressed with Mike Woodson. And here's what a lot of people may not know. I mean, you and I were even different eras, but Mike Woodson was even at 2 eras before me.
Right, yeah.
And so we don't interact as much as what I think some people might think that we do as former players. And so I didn't know Mike Woodson very well. I didn't know a lot about him. I know whenever I had been with him at events, he's very quiet. He doesn't talk a whole lot. He's not outgoing. He's not Isaiah. He's not Quinn Buckner. He's not those guys that are the guys who do all the talking. And so I was interested to learn more about him. And I'll tell you, you have to give Scott Woodson, I'm going too fast here. You have to give Scott Dawson the credit because, he's the guy that pulled the trigger. He'd be taking the blame right now if he hadn't have been the guy doing it.
Right.
But I would have never guessed that we could be this excited, and we could go all the way back to a month after they hired him, that we could be that excited about anyone other than Brad Stevens at that point.
Right.
And if nothing against Brad Stevens, just the situation has worked out perfectly, but I wouldn't trade 1 second for Brad Stevens right now. And I think he's one of the best coaches of all time.
Phenomenal, yeah.
But where Mike Woodson has Indiana basketball right now, and the excitement, and where I think they can build, I mean, heck, it's been 6 months.
Yep.
I mean, where they can go, it's unlimited for me. I couldn't be more excited with Mike Woodson.
And I mean, the last thing I'll say before I let Austin jump in here and get us to the current Hoosiers is when I was thinking of a former player, I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't thinking Coach Woodson, because in the NBA he was locked in. He was 20 years in the league. So, and I know from experience, like a lot of those guys that get in that league, it's so comfortable and so easy. They usually don't.
Sure.
What former player was on your mind? What were your top 3 former player options to coach the Hoosiers before they hired Mike Woodson? If you might have had an inside, I don't know. But what were your top 3 for former Hoosiers?
We're all going to do this kind of probably generationally, but I mean, obviously I played 4 years with Calbert. I thought Calbert would have been a great fit.
That was my pick.
AJ's been saying Calbert's name for a while.
Yeah.
Well, when I was talking with Dawson, when Brad Stevens said no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and they kept going back and kept going back, and I kept saying, okay, if it's not going to be him, I think Calvert has to be your next option. And I think that a scenario with a kind of a co-head coaches, maybe like the Thad Matta-ish type of situation, I think Thad Matta might have had a much bigger impact on a Calbert Chaney type situation. I think that might have, I might have seen how that made a lot of sense. Steve Alford's always been, if you were going to write a book about Indiana basketball, Steve Alford would have been the ideal ending to the story. Right. I mean, that he would have been the guy who would have taken over. And I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago. I think the timing of that scenario just never fit right.
Right.
And had his time at Iowa been different, and had the Indiana job opened up at a different time and all that, like, I truly believe he probably would have ended up as the coach there at one point. And so, Calvert and Steve Alford are guys that I thought made a lot of sense. But I mean, Mike Woodson, I didn't know enough about. I didn't know anything about him.
I didn't either. I didn't think of him. Like, my mind was like,
it's one of those that I thought to myself, hey, if Mike Woodson was going to take this job, I think there would have been a couple of opportunities earlier on that they would have gone that direction. They had the opportunity, but again, I think the timing for Mike Woodson probably just, he hadn't run his course in the NBA yet. And I hope he's the coach here until he's done coaching.
Hey,
but if not, you and I both know he could end up back in the NBA at some point. I mean, that's just how that scenario works. If the Lakers call up, I mean, I don't know. You have to consider it.
I think the foundation is really getting set, and I think that's what I'm most proud of. So when Mike Woodson is finished, I think, you got Fife behind them. You got guys out there that Calvert to be experienced at that point. You got so many options you can really turn to. And I think Coach Woodson is doing a great job laying the foundation. So, but I could ask this stuff all day, man. So we're going to jump right into these current.
Yeah, because I will elaborate way too much on the question. So just cut me off whenever you want.
We're going to get the opportunity to do that because I'm loving the responses that I'm getting. So let's jump into the current Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear that through 8 games, the identity of Mike Woodson is defense. What have been your takeaways through the first section of this season?
It was interesting in watching the Syracuse game. If you listen to the broadcast, and I think Jimmy Dykes on there was really critical of Indiana's defense and critical of them being exposed. It was the word I think he kept using. And I think I've been to practice. And I've watched Coach Woodson a little bit, although they had much more of an offensive practice when I was there. I know I heard a lot of the things that they were saying. And one of the things they harp on is kind of individual man-on-man defense, less help, which is, AJ, from what we know of Coach Knight, it's kind of opposite world of what we learned growing up under there. But I mean, I think he's building what AJ said in that foundation. I don't think the defense is great. I know they said the defense is ahead of the offense. But I think, and that's probably a true statement, but I still don't think they're anywhere near where they're going to be. I think when they're able to kind of guard better one-on-one and keep guys in front of them, keep them out of dribble penetration, I think that the defense will, I don't want to say snap their fingers, but I think they'll click all kind of at one time. And this will be a tough team to score against, I want to say, in late January and February and March.
Is it safe to say that from your interactions with Coach Woodson, that defense is what he kind of wants to be his calling card as a head coach? I mean, I think his NBA background is going to allow guys to be excited enough about their opportunities offensively. I don't think he's going to need to preach, we're going to let you come here and go one-on-one and learn an NBA style offense. I think that's what's going to just kind of transform with itself. I think he wants his identity to be defense. I think if we look back, I mean, how would you define Coach Knight? Would you say he was a defensive coach? I mean, I think AJ would say after November, probably 90% of our practices were offense. Everything we did was offense. And a lot of it was 5-on-0, ridiculous, monotonous BS. But I mean, it was offense. I mean, once you know the defense, you know the rules, you know what you're supposed to do. It's effort at that point. And if he's got to coach effort, you're not going to be on the floor. And I think Mike Woodson's going to be kind of in that same category.